Hey everybody, how you doing? This is Colin G. Murphy and welcome to Colin Podcasting About Real Estate Show 55. Hope you guys are doing great. I certainly am. Loving the real estate market at the moment. It is busier and busier and busier than ever before, and long may it continue. I have a guest today who's an expert in virtual wholesaling, where you're able to do real estate deals outside your own hometown and even outside your own state. And that's particularly interesting to me personally. And I said before, I always try and invite guests on the show that I can personally quiz them on whatever I want about and help my own real estate business by doing so. Because by the time this show is released, and by the time you're listening to it in early August, I will be living in Madrid, Spain. So I am moving from Tampa, Florida to Madrid, Spain in July 2021. So by the time you're listening to this, I'll be in my new base in Madrid, Spain, where I lived for many years, almost 10 years in my early 30s and late 20s with my Spanish wife. That's where my kids were born, and that's where we've decided to relocate for lots of reasons. Good food, good culture. We kept our property there. We have a lovely house there and we're moving back to it. And I've got an office literally a stone's throw from the house, literally a 25-second walk into a lovely new office, which you'll see in future podcast episodes. So big move, and but I'm continuing to operate my real estate business. I'm continuing to virtually flip properties, renovate properties, buy and sell land, sell outright, owner finance, own rentals. I'm planning to do everything that I did in Tampa, Florida, but from Madrid, Spain. Now, obviously, there's differences in how you're taxed and entities you have to own them in and all of that, but you can do it. And I took some pains to set up my business in such a way and set up my team in such a way as to enable me to enjoy the Spanish lifestyle and enjoy the American real estate market. So feel free to reach out to me if you want to quiz me on more questions about that. It was a big deal, and I'm glad I did it, or I'm glad I'm doing it. But listen, let's move on to today's guest. His name is James Hawk, and he's a highly successful wholesaler, flipper, business owner, fascinating guy. He's bought and sold over $90 million of residential and commercial property, and he's closed almost 1,000 individual properties. So this guy's literally squeezed about 25 years worth of work in about 10 or 11 years. He's achieved a tremendous amount, and we had a good wide-ranging conversation about his initial foray into wholesaling back in 2010, how he built his marketing and sales skills over time, how he uses software to scale his business, expanding from 4 to 41 different markets with virtual wholesaling, and he's expanding literally to up to 50 deals a month. It's quite amazing. But we also talk about how small investors can get inventory in a competitive market and compete against people that have bigger budgets than you or I are ever going to have. He has great advice for anybody starting out with a small budget, say $5,000. We kind of brainstorm that a little bit, and he's got some great tips and just a lot more besides. Really interesting guy. Good show, good conversation. I learned a lot from it, and I hope you will too. So let's head on over and see what James has to say. James Hawk, how you doing, my friend? Welcome to the show.
Doing great. Thanks for having me on.
It's my pleasure. I'm really looking forward to digging into your real estate journey, buddy. And why don't let's just start. Tell us a bit about yourself, starting with the early days.
Sure. So I'm James Hawk. I got started in 2010. I was actually working in steel fabrication. So I worked for a bridge company. We did the Woodrow Wilson in DC. We were on Mega Builders, that show on Discovery for us. Cool. But I realized, you're only going to make so much money. You're only going to be able to go so far. So I was always interested in real estate. I had a friend that was wholesaling. He really wouldn't tell me a lot about, how to do it, how to get started. And we both know if, you got started back then, like YouTube University wasn't really much of a thing back in 2010, right? No. So finding information was difficult. Mm-hmm. So, I went online and tried to find as much as I could, learn as much as I could. And then, finally just decided, hey, I'm going to do this. Right. And it all starts with the commitment. Obviously, if you don't have that commitment, you're never going to do anything. So I moved forward with it. It took me about 4 months to get my first deal. A lot of like networking and building relationships. So the first one was $4,000. Then I was still working my full-time job.
Okay.
About 2 months later, I did a 2-house package deal for $20,000, the most money I've ever seen in my life.
Wow. Was this a wholesale deal where you had an
Yeah,
assignment
wholesale.
fee of 20,000?
Yeah. So it's 2 houses. So if you really wanted to break it in half, it was $10,000 a piece, but it was 2 houses as a package to a buyer, and that was it. I quit after that. Went
So $24,000 later, you said that's enough to know that I can give it a go.
Yeah, and not saying that I recommend that necessarily,
Well,
right?
it's not
But
like you were married with 4 kids back then. You were a young guy, right? So
true.
you could take more risks, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, I was what? So, I mean, I'm 34 now. So yeah, I was in my like early 20s.
And so can you remember how did you find those 2 deals that you made 20,000 from back in 2010, 11? I mean, real estate landscape was very different. Do you recall how that worked out?
Yeah, so it was through a lot of like networking on online, right? So like I believe the second one was like LinkedIn. I think that's where it came from. So I met this guy. It might not have been LinkedIn, but I met this gentleman in a surrounding, like a close area. I forget which city, but it was right next to where I lived at the time, which I lived in St. Augustine, Florida at the time. And he was doing a lot of marketing. He was trying to get going. At that point, I hadn't started marketing yet. So we partnered up on the deal that he had got this lead. And then I found the buyer. And that's how actually both of those first 2 deals happened. And after that, I had money, right? So I started marketing heavy in direct mail. And I still send direct mail today. It's nowhere near as robust. I mean, at one point a couple of years ago, we were sending, 100,000 plus pieces of mail a month.
Wow.
Yeah, versus now we send, on average 10 to 20,000 a week. And that's more of like a lower end marketing strategy that we have. We spend a lot more money in other places at this point.
Wow, that's good. So before we kind of dig into the rest of the journey, where are you now? Can you describe your company now and what kind of deals you do?
Sure. So we're actually, as of coming into this week, next week, we'll be in about 41 states. So primarily our like primary market though is throughout Florida. Now where we do and all that's for wholesaling, right? Now we also do fix and flips. But those are primarily like the Northeast to Central Florida for the fix and flips that we'll do, and then some in South Florida as well. So it really depends, but the majority are done in Northeast to Central Florida. Then we also we have a bunch of lots right now that we're doing some new construction. Then we also we buy like for like the hold properties. We're looking for more unique types of deals. A cool story. We actually bought it's supposed to be the most haunted house in St. Augustine. It's on like the ghost tours and everything like that right there, like by the bay. So it's a really cool property that we're renovating now, and is a crazy deal. Like we really knocked it out of the park on that one. We also have 20,000 square foot of commercial space under contract right now to buy. And
What
then
kind
we
of
have
commercial space?
another commercial space that's like 6,600 square foot under contract to buy as well. So for like the whole properties, we're looking for, more unique stuff like that, like bigger properties or like really like cool properties, right?
So what's the commercial space? Is there retail, industrial? What
It's
kind of
light
space is it?
industrial.
Light industrial.
Yeah, so the 20,000 square foot one's light industrial. The other one is actually a used appliance store right now. But what's great about it, because I could care less about the appliance store, but the space itself and the land, it's like at a prime intersection in Jacksonville that there's, I think, roughly about 60,000 cars a day that
Wow.
drive by it. So it's in just a heavy traffic area. And we were actually thinking about, putting an office there, just in, getting a big sign, come in for your offer out front, like a huge bandit sign is what we were thinking about doing. But
Oh, okay.
we'll see. Or we'll just do something else with it. But we got a crazy deal on that one as well. I mean, just the land alone in that area on those main roads are usually $1 million plus.
Wow. And how did you find that land? Was that sending direct mail? Was that networking with local
That was a
landowners in
text.
town?
Yeah, that one actually came from a text.
No kidding.
Yeah.
It's great. So you said you blast text messages out to vacant landowners and say, I'd like to buy your land. Please call me to discuss.
Yeah, well, we do some texting. We do some texting as well. We were a lot heavier in texting also, just like direct mail, but we've even slimmed that down a little bit more, and we've gone much more like niche for texting and for direct mail.
Wow. Well, I really want to dig into your wholesaling in 41 states. But before we do that, tell me a bit about your buy and hold strategy for the unique properties. Because I'm the opposite. I'm buy and hold for cookie cutter properties. So I'm keen to know what kind of properties you buy and what you do with them. Are you like Airbnb-ing them? Are you doing short-term lets in these, you mentioned a
Yeah.
haunted house in St. Augustine in a prime location. You tell us a bit about what kind of stuff you got going on there.
Sure. So for that one, the way that the house is set up, it's 2 stories. We're doing Airbnb upstairs. There's a separate entrance for upstairs, and then downstairs, we're negotiating with a couple restaurants right now for doing a lease with them. We're hoping for about $10,000 a month, lease for downstairs, and then upstairs, we're anticipating, depending on the season, should be anywhere between, $350 to $500 a night there. And we anticipate it'll stay really well booked. I mean, it's a great deal. We paid, I think it's $325 for it, and we'll probably put $175 in it. So if we can get that commercial lease in place, be a great deal. So we're just looking for more of the stuff that it might require a little bit more money, a little bit more work, some creativity and everything else, but it's usually like highly desirable real estate, right? Versus there's nothing wrong with the cookie cutter type strategy. I mean, that works well. I know a lot of people, we have a lot of mutual friends that do the same thing. But we were looking for a little bit something more unique. I didn't want to own, 1,000 just normal, cookie cutter houses.
Your way is more interesting, it's less boring.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And I mean, there's definitely, there's pros and cons to it, right? It's more difficult, right? So, because we don't have any specific, like, hey, this is we're not out there actively pursuing like these types of properties per se. But when we, come across them, right? Like we have a lot of people that send us stuff, or, through our marketing, we run across stuff. That we're looking, but we're not actively out there like pursuing like buy and holds. But when we get a good opportunity that we like, then we'll move forward with just purchasing it and doing something.
Have you another example of a buy and hold that's up and running? Can you tell us a bit about it?
Yeah, so we've sold them, man. We sold
really?
them all. Yeah.
Just recently, like in the last year or so?
Actually a year and a half ago. We sold them off, and now we're just buying the the unique stuff to hold.
Gotcha. Okay, so you kind of did a pivot. So you've owned, yeah, and that's cool. I mean, a lot of experienced investors do that. They don't own the same real estate for 10, 20, 30 years. They often sell them and 1031 exchange them into something different. And sometimes it's because they're bored with it. Sometimes it's because they've changed their mind as to what constitutes a good buy and hold investment.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's the thing, because that's what we were doing before, single family homes.
Mm-hmm.
And we're just like, you know what, we want to do something a little bit different. And I'm really interested in storage as well. So anyone has any storage, send it to me.
Yeah, if anyone can sell me storage at 2012 prices, I'll buy all you can get. That'd be nice.
Yeah, I don't want to pay today's full retail prices, but I would, yeah, if I could get a deal, I'll buy it.
Yeah, no kidding. That's, yeah, I hear you. So talk to us about wholesaling then. 41 states, that's incredible. I mean, I chat to investors regularly who live in expensive markets, and I advise them, don't go kind of renovating houses out of state remotely, especially if you're starting out. That's a good way of losing your shirt. But I'm always intrigued by people making money virtually, and that is something you can kind of dip your toe in initially before becoming an expert in it like you are. So can you tell us a bit about your experience there and how you grew that business?
Sure. So really all it is a function of marketing and the process, right? So once you understand and you have a great grasp on the process, on how to like dispo virtually, how to lock up contracts and do acquisitions and everything else, you can really do it anywhere, right? So even though that the markets are different and everything else, as long as you have a very defined, precise process that is proven, and you have great dispo, because really it's not the acquisition that is more of the issue, where it's very common that it's like, oh, we got to get the deals. But when you're virtually and you're more broad, right? You might not get all your deals in the hottest markets around the country, right? And then sometimes you will, through your marketing efforts. But really the dispo is the bigger deal here, because generating the leads when you go broader is actually easier. But finding the buyer and doing the dispo process and everything like that, that's what the real key is behind the virtual, right? Because you're not making any money until you sell it.
Yeah. And that's what I personally would worry about if I was to see somebody sent me a deal in Atlanta or Charlotte or Kansas City. I'd have to do a lot of research as to what is this worth and what can I afford to pay for it in order to get my, X% margin. So that's how do you get good at researching what the values are when it can take a while to become experienced in even one market?
Sure. So, I mean, we just use like the normal resources, right? So we have, we got our automator that we use, right? So everyone uses that. Then we're obviously, which has nationwide MLS. We even have values in the non-disclosure states as well. We'll reference like Zillow, we'll reference realtor.com, Redfin. So we look across all platforms to really make sure that we're not missing anything. And then that's how we're going to do our values. But primarily you're going to be selling to, buyers that are there, right? So that are local to that area, that are investors there. And, realtors are a huge tool, in doing virtual as well, because they have buyers, right? So, leverage realtors if you want to do virtual, and then, cut them in a small fee on the deal, but they'll make your life a lot easier.
So are you find a buyer, a motivated buyer, you put something under contract, and then you kind of have, 30, 40 days or whatever it might be to try and assign that contract to maybe a local investor or a local realtor buyer. Is that what you do?
Yeah. So we'll do like 14 days, inspection or so. I mean, if you haven't moved it in 14 days, then, in this market, you probably don't have a deal, right? Or it's too high. So we'll do 14 days inspection, and then we'll go hit all the realtors. We'll pull cash buyers list. We'll send out text to all the realtors, all the cash buyers in the area with the deal. And it's, now, like, as long as you have a deal, like you're definitely going to sell it. And then we'll use the realtor as like our boots on the ground, right? To, facilitate like showing it to the buyer and everything else.
Okay. I mean, I can understand a company building a list of cash buyers over time that you can send out a mail to, but if I have a property in Atlanta and I'm based in Tampa, how am I going to get that out to all the local realtors in Atlanta? How do you do that?
To the realtors?
Yeah, or to somebody who can find you a buyer. Yeah.
Yeah, so we have in our automator, we have different lists, right? We have like the flipper list, stuff like that. So those are realtors that are working directly with cash buyers. So in there, you can actually filter it out to where you have their cell phone numbers just directly without even skip tracing it. So then you can upload that into a texting platform and then, send them a text like, hey, I have a deal in Greenbrier, so for, this much, and it's a 3-2, whatever it is, right? And then they'll respond back, right? If they have a buyer, right? So you'll say, hey, do you have a buyer? Do you have anyone who might be interested in this? So that's one way, right? And then you can pull, like, there's other resources too for realtor lists. You can just go to realtor.com and say, hey, like, pull all the, the top realtors in this particular town or, or city or whatever, and blast them as well, or even start calling them.
So you mentioned twice REI Automator. Can you tell us what that is for people that don't know?
Yeah, so that's basically so Sean, Terry, and I. So I had started it. It's essentially like, a white label of a prop stream that we built, like additional training, and added features to stuff like that. And then I brought Sean in as a partner on it. This was back in 2018. So that's Sean's nationwide in his business as well. I know a lot of people know Sean, and that's what we both use, right? So we're both very similar in like our business and our strategy.
What does it do? REI Automator? What does it have?
I mean, you can do all your marketing out of there, any distress lists, like, we have pre-probate lists, we have tax delinquent lists, we have essentially any of the data, cash buyer data. It's heavily filtered. We source from all three of the top, data providers for real estate. Where some are only just one or the other. Like, a lot of people just use CoreLogic. Well, we source from all three and then filter it down for accuracy. We can skip trace in there. The same with skip tracing. We have like what's called multi-tiered skip tracing. So that's actually run through multiple providers and filtered for accuracy as well. You can send marketing through there, direct mail. You can send random voicemail. We're integrating text into there now. It does a lot of cool stuff.
Wow, and that presumably some sort of monthly subscription fee, is it?
Yeah, so it's only it's $97 a month.
Okay, sounds like a useful tool. So you said you do deals in 41 states. I mean, what kind of scale are you at now, James? How many deals would you do, wholesale deals would you do in a typical month?
Yeah, so that's the thing. We're not so next week we'll be in 41, right? So
okay.
So the way our marketing is set up, right? And I'm fortunate enough to have some really close friends that have been doing nationwide for a very long time and doing it at a high level and very well. So I've had many calls with them where they've showed me a lot of what they've been doing as far as like their nationwide marketing and everything like that. So as of today, we're primarily in like 4 states. All right. So we're just going to expand our marketing out. All the campaigns are built and everything else throughout the country. I mean, the way these marketing systems work, especially online, if you understand how it works, then there really isn't any stopping you. We're excluding a bunch of states just because they're not really desirable states, or there's regulations there or anything like that. But it's really just understanding how to build these campaigns out for online marketing. If you understand that, like, you could really just like deals are no issues. Leads will flow every day at a very, very like strong cost per lead on the lower end. So we're not in 41 as of right now today.
Fair enough.
We ramped up the sales team. We just actually brought on 6 more salespeople within the last like 2 weeks. So preparing for the full on like nationwide 41 states.
So how many did you used to do in the 4 states? How many would you get
For wholesale, like 15.
15 a month. That's quite a lot. And now you're hoping, sounds like you're hoping to scale that up significantly.
It's going to be 50 really quick.
Wow, that's crazy. 50 a month. That's, what kind of team do you have in place for that? I'm curious.
We have 1, 2, 3. We have like 9 salespeople, like on acquisitions. We have 1 dispo. We have a quality assurance manager. We have a COO. We have an office manager. We have project manager. We have 3 VAs, full-time marketing manager. Let me think. Am I missing anybody? No, I think that's everybody.
Yeah, quite a substantial team. That's a real business. That's the beauty of what I love about real estate. You can have a successful career with you and a buddy, or you can build it to 20, 30, 40, 50 people, or whatever you want. I mean, you can literally do it any way you like. I mean, there's certain industries where you have to be big or you're going nowhere, but real estate, you have that balance to do whatever you want. That's what I love about it. And that's same with, I know people that are one-man band wholesalers and they're doing just fine. And then I know there's guys like you that are much bigger operations and, you know, have a lot more opportunities to scale and move up different levels.
We've done it, you know, like both ways. And over time, we've went back and forth like, you know, should we keep it smaller? Should we do more flips than wholesale? You know, should we just do flips? Like for a while, we only did flips. For a while, we only did wholesale. And you know, what we ended up settling on when we go back and look at the data, right? Like the flips have always historically made us a lot of money. Wholesaling's always done really well. So it just made sense to keep that hybrid going, especially in the market that we're in today. And we just make sure with any of the flips, they're all like, we're not doing tight deals, right? So, I mean, actually we just had, you know, one of the biggest like actual fix and flips that we've done close, 2 days ago. Yeah. Wednesday this week. It was a net like $250,000 fix and flip.
Wow. What kind of property was that?
It was so on the north side of Jacksonville on the marsh. So it was more of a luxury type property. But we thought when we bought this property that we were going to sell it for $650 to $700. You know, tops, right? And we've owned it since the end of last year is when we bought it. I believe we bought it in November or December of last year. And what we ended up doing is, you know, it took a while to get this thing done. We had to bring in so much dirt. I think we brought in $20,000 worth of dirt just to raise this place up. It was on the marsh as far as like so the land itself wouldn't flood. And we ended up getting this buyer, man, out of nowhere. We have a mother-in-law suite there and they really want a mother-in-law suite. And there's obviously a lack of inventory out there. So he came in and he paid $807,000 cash and closed in a week.
Oh my God. Not too many.
And this is a retail buyer.
So you listed this on the MLS, did you?
Yeah. So it was a flip.
List price?
Yeah, we did. We fully renovated it. We listed on the MLS, and I think.
What was your list price? Was it 800 or less?
No, I think it was. What was it? I don't even remember. I'd have to look, but it wasn't.
Okay. I'm just trying to wonder, did he come in above it or?
I think we listed at like $799 or something like that. And then he came in at 815, and he was going to pay 815 for it. And then we ended up dropping off. It was like what, six grand or so for the septic. There was a septic issue, so we gave him a credit for that. And then I think there was some other like miscellaneous. So all in all, it ended up being about 807,000.
Wow. And so no appraisal done?
I think he did an appraisal.
Okay.
I think he did an appraisal, but remember when we bought it, like the comp, I mean, and there's not a ton of comps there, but it's a really cool property. I mean, it's on the marsh. It's a huge house. It's got a lot going for it. So right now, I mean, even these appraisals, when you don't have a ton of the similar comps, like they're still coming in pretty high most of the time. At least that's what we're seeing where we're fixing flipping.
That's like a 200 and something thousand profit on an 800 transaction. That's a tremendous gross profit. I mean, getting 25% on a $200,000 sale is impressive. Getting it on an 800 is awesome. I mean, that's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean the check was, because we had like $60,000 of our own money in it, so the check itself was over. It was like three something, but when you like netted it all out, it's like right at about 250 is what we made net.
That's fantastic. And I don't buy houses at that level, but I've been kind of stuck with some houses I bought in December and January that I've been stuck with for various reasons, just eviction issues and delays with permits and different things like that, all of which ended up working in my favor because I'm buying this thinking I'll sell it for 180 and now it's 220, you know?
Yeah.
And it's just crazy. So what's your, with that in mind, what's your take on the current market? Where do you think we're headed, and what kinds of properties are you going to buy?
Well, I'll tell you what, my business partner made an interesting point to his credit the other day. His name is Hunter. And I'll just give you just a brief, overview on that. So when I started in 2010, I was doing it by myself, obviously. He was as well, but we actually merged both of our wholesaling companies together in 2013, and we've been business partners ever since. But obviously, at the end of the year, something's going to happen, right? So if we get flooded with the foreclosures, which I think is a strong possibility, and in my mind, I was thinking, hey, this is going to be a great time for, creative deals, right? So we're really ramping up and preparing for, doing a lot of creative deals as well. Well, the point that he made to me the other day, and I'm like, I haven't thought about that. And I don't know if many other people have either, is you got all the iBuyers out there, all the funds, right, that are buying Zillow, Open Door, you name it. They're paying crazy prices, right? So just because there's a flood of foreclosures that hit the market, what does that really mean for them? They're still going to want to buy, right? So if they still keep paying the same prices that they're paying now, even though there's a flood of foreclosures, it might not actually affect the market too much at all.
Yeah.
For the ones that match that criteria. Now, obviously, the ones that are more impacted and the bigger opportunity for us, right, are your older, like for us in Florida, like your 60s, 70s, 50s, like, your concrete blocks, your older properties, because there's not as many funds buying those. But as far as all the like newer properties, right, like I thought it was a very interesting point. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
I agree. Look, if foreclosures are, 0.5% or less of all inventory, and that goes up to 10% or 5%, like it's probably enough demand to absorb that increase in inventory. There's so little of it out there at the moment compared to the demand.
Yeah, I mean, inventory is at all-time lows, just even on the national level. I mean, we have lower inventory now than we had in 2005, right? 2006, right at the crash. So I believe on the national level, and I could be wrong about this, but I believe that collectively there's under a month of inventory for the entire country.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. That's a staggering statistic.
It is. It's staggeringly low. And I mean, given that, you would think anybody who's got a house to sell, who needs to sell a house, I mean, all they really need to do is put a sign in the yard, put it on Zillow. They'll sell it within a few weeks, 5, 6 weeks. So, and with that in mind, I mean, how are wholesalers like you still getting so many deals when it is, in theory, very easy to sell a house? You don't necessarily need a wholesaler to take it off your hands and find a buyer. So why are people still doing it?
I mean, I think it comes down to great marketing and great sales skills, right? And value.
Yeah, fair enough. Mm-hmm.
And value, right? So we just really pump hard on value propositions and benefits to the sellers. So all the situations that they don't want to deal with, or even going the traditional way, going through the realtor, that might not be able to deal with it, right? So we're really putting that front and center across everything that we do, and try to provide more value than anyone else is going to provide them.
Mm-hmm. And can you give us an example of what kind of value you offer to sellers that would make them take your deal?
Sure. I mean, you could almost name anything, and essentially we would probably do it, right? So in some of the stuff that I'll tell you something very simple that almost anyone will do, right? Almost any wholesaler. But a lot of the times the seller will not know this because it's never relayed to the seller. Like if they even have like some kind of title issues or something going on, like related to being able to sell the property, right? Like a lot of wholesalers will just like either pass on it, or they won't even disclose to them like, oh, like I will guide you. Like we have people in the office that will guide them through that entire process, like help them negotiate liens, whatever it may be, right? So just something as small as that, makes a difference. And then you just keep adding more and more things collectively. It just adds up. If you need a new house, we'll help you find a new house, right? Like we own a brokerage as well. You need a place to rent. If you don't have money for a deposit, we'll put a deposit down for you. You're like, so, all these things that, if someone's in a situation that it makes sense to sell, right? Like distressed, then, we're going to provide a solution for almost anything that they can come up with.
Mm-hmm. And I've seen that, I bought deals from wholesalers, and I've seen how they've literally bent over backwards to enable a very tricky sale to happen. And if the wholesaler wasn't in the middle offering all this assistance and all this time, that it would just never get done. I mean, like you said, I'll help you with a deposit. I'll give you can have an extra 2 weeks to stay in the house. I'll find someone that'll help you move your stuff. I'll find whatever it is. I'll help you get your utilities connected. I'll help you clear this lien. I mean, you're right. You offer all sorts of hand holding that, that they
you wouldn't probably want to do that, right?
It just sounds incredibly time consuming to me. I mean, yeah,
right, exactly.
I'll just pay the wholesaler's fee and get them.
Exactly. So that's that's the value that, if the wholesaler is doing it the right way. Now,
yes,
there's times that you still get deals that you don't have to do too much of anything, right? But a lot of them today in this market, they have some form of hair on them at this point.
Yes, you're right. There's not too many light deals at the minute. There's some very profitable deals, but you generally, like you're saying, you have to either be very patient, pretty creative, and spend a lot of time kind of dealing with little problems. Maybe 20 little problems to get it done.
Yeah. No, and that's the thing, right? So we truly want to help them, right? So that's the key. Everyone on the team, they're all bought in on that, and all moving towards, helping them as much as we possibly can. That everyone's aware we're going to run into some crazy situations, some interesting people, and we just do our best to help them the best that we possibly can. And that comes across, right? So that's just some of the ways that you can set yourself apart.
Okay, I don't know if you're still in the weeds as much with the sellers as you used to be, James, but do you recall any recent deals where you had just a really weird situation that you had to deal with that normal mom and pop buyers and sellers might never come across?
Let me think. I'll think about that for a second.
Yeah.
Give me the
Okay.
next
You let that
question. I'll think
percolate in the
about it.
back of
I'm
your
sure
mind.
there is. I mean, there's always some interesting ones going on.
Yeah, no, no kidding. So I'm just wondering, well, my next question, you might have answered a little bit, was, how can kind of the small wholesalers or small flippers even differentiate themselves from the whales? Because you've a lot of the big corporate buyers, you've Zillow, International Homes, Try It On, a lot of firepower, fancy, sophisticated marketing campaigns targeting all these homeowners. How can a small person or even a medium-sized company kind of compete with these big whales in a busy market?
Well, there's a couple of different ways to do it, but becoming better than you are right now, right? As far as marketing and sales is a big one. You should always be working on, becoming a better marketer, becoming better at acquisitions, right? You're not going to beat them, right? Like, you don't have more money than they do, right? So you're not going to be able to market as much as they do, but maybe, just maybe, you can, if you can become great at marketing, or you hire someone that's great at marketing, you can customize a message that's going to resonate with the people that don't appreciate, right, the big box, right, the large corporations buying up all the properties. So you always got to look at what the other side of that is, and where's the opportunity there, because there is a lot of people that want to deal with someone that's local, that
Yep.
don't want to sell to Zillow, that don't want to sell to Open Door or anything like that. So if I'm a local mom and pop shop buying deals locally, I would be promoting the hell out of I'm local, right? Like, that's what I would, that's one of the first things that I would do. Like, hey, I'm born and raised here, grew up here, I'm local. Like, you can come to my office or whatever, right? So
Yep.
don't sell to the big box hedge fund, right? Come see me and I'll buy your house, right? So I think it's just crafting around, like, what advantages can you pull that you have over them, right? So figuring out what those are for you, and integrating that into your marketing and your sales, that will help you dramatically if you're struggling.
I think that's great advice. I think that's really great advice. I like that a lot. And, let me, ask a flip side of that. Let's say we have somebody that wants to get started, that they've read all the books, they've listened to loads of podcasts, they've been to a few RIA meetings, and now they've got, let's say a $5,000 marketing budget and they want to get a deal. What would you recommend they do? With that, how should they get started so that they don't waste this? That's all they have, the 5,000 to spend on it to see if it works or not. What should they do in today's market?
Yeah, I mean, $5,000. I mean, it really isn't a lot, especially I mean, I know it's a decent amount of money. Don't get me wrong, but as far as in this market, and like if it was direct mail or something like that, direct mail is just, you don't want to blow it on that, because it can be hit or miss. I mean, truthfully, what I'd be doing is I would be, investing in, a couple like key, like, tools, right, that are inexpensive. That's not going to cost you a whole lot. I would, as an example, with like RA Automator, I would do that. And so you can like virtual drive for dollars in there, just sitting on your couch, right? And that's $97 a month. So I would be pulling, like very niche, like targeted list in certain areas. You can check where all the cash buyer activity is really happening. Go out just a little bit further to almost like the sub market, right? Like right around you, that still has a lot of activity, but not in like the nucleus, right, of like the most competitive areas. And then I would pull that list, and then I would virtually drive them just on your street view and checking them out. And then you could add in there which ones are like look like they need the most work, and then build your own list. And then I would skip trace them, and I would start texting and calling. And that wouldn't even cost you, not even probably close to the full $5,000. But if I was just starting out, that's the way that I would do it.
I love it. So yeah, Yeah, skip tracing and texting and voicemail. You're right. You can do that for pennies per
Yeah,
lead.
and you're targeting very distressed list anyway. And even though Street View might be old, it might be a couple years old or whatever, at that time, if it looks like a distress, looks like it needs a good amount of work, those are the ones I'd be targeting. And then that'll also save you some money on skip tracing versus just, skip tracing everything. Because if you only got $5,000, at that moment, you have more time than you have resources. Right. So leverage whichever one you have more of at the time. And once you have more money, then you have time, then you can afford to spend a little bit more. But
that's awesome. And so one more question then before we kind of wind up. If you're kind of a one-man band and you've done that marketing and you've got a deal, who's the first person you should hire when you start getting bigger? What should they be doing?
yeah, I would say that's like a almost like a hybrid assistant position. That's just my opinion. Someone that can help you with coordinating the transactions, that can help you with like all the miscellaneous stuff, like making sure that all of your leads are kept on track, and all the tedious stuff, right, that most entrepreneurs really don't enjoy doing. And that'll make your life much easier, faster, versus going out and trying to just hire straight into a sales position or something like that. Well, guess what? Like, someone still has to do all that administrative stuff that both of you now probably hate, because salespeople typically hate all the administrative stuff, right? So
Yes.
now you have you and then another person, both of you are just letting everything probably slip through the cracks because you hate it. So I think that administrative type position, help you process transactions, stuff like that, can help you field some leads, right? Like a lead coordinator, and just a little bit of a hybrid position at first that eventually you can place that person into a set, whatever they shine at the best, and then go into hiring like sales and stuff like that.
I love it. Yeah, that's great advice, and I can totally see how hiring another salesperson can end in like just more chaos for your
Yeah, a
company
lot of
when
people do
your
that.
hire is supposed to
Like, the
result in
first
less
position, I
chaos.
want to stop doing the sales. So now you got two salespeople that, all the leads are slipping through the cracks. Probably the marketing is not even being ordered and going out on time because no one's organized.
Nobody's doing bookkeeping. Nobody knows how much money is there.
No one knows how much money they're making, how much they're spending. I mean, it's a disaster. So
I was talking to a lady this morning who was just telling me about something she fixed up and how beautiful it was. And I was, oh, great. How much did you spend on it? And she said, oh, I don't know. We don't really keep track of that stuff. And I was like, wow, kind of should keep track of that stuff. Somebody should.
Yeah, no. And that's the thing, right? It's, the more you grow, it's easy, right, to, if you don't keep a finger on that pulse, right, like you really got to keep your numbers tight and know what's going on in the business, because at that point it really becomes a real business. And a lot of entrepreneurs that get into the real estate investing game, right, they come from all walks of lives and backgrounds and everything, and experience levels, right? And a lot of them, a lot of them get into like wholesaling, they're hustlers, right? So it's like,
Sure.
you don't have any, formal knowledge or even self-taught on like, running a business. That's where it becomes a big part in like the self-education and reading and like really, networking, masterminds, stuff along those lines that'll help elevate yourself to be able to grow it into something like that efficiently and profitably.
I've read a good quote earlier today, which kind of links on that. And it's formal education will make you a living. Self-education will make you a fortune.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. 100%.
I like that. Before we finish up, James, can you tell us about anything else exciting that you're working on right now with your business that is kind of cutting edge or something you're really excited about, a path you're taking?
Yeah, I mean, really, like the expansion that we're doing, I'm super excited about. So, I also do some coaching and, some stuff along those lines as well. And we have a lot of people that are seeing a lot of success there. So I'm working on some deals, with some of those students that I'm really excited about, that are like some bigger deals, like some portfolios, stuff like that. And I'm also looking at a portfolio right now in the Central Florida area,
Nice.
that we're really excited about.
Was a portfolio of single families or
Yeah, single
multifamily?
family. Yeah, yeah, and it's actually going to be it's actually a pretty decent sized one as well. So I'm excited about that, and I'm excited about all these new properties as well in the expansion. And like, we have some real rock star talent, on our team, and we've been very fortunate through right now, where I'm talking to many other successful investors that we both know across the country, that are having some serious problems right now, like hiring. Right, they have a big need for hiring, and finding good talent, and they're struggling to do it. So we've been very fortunate that here lately we built this like flow, this funnel, and it's providing us like consistent like applications, leads, on hiring people, and it's been great. So that's a big blessing in itself right there.
Yes.
Excuse me, especially when so many other people are struggling right now.
And this might be a good time to anybody who's got great people working on their team. Just don't take them for granted.
No.
Express your appreciation. I've sent out a couple of hampers this week to people that are, it doesn't have to be your direct employees. It could be just landscapers that I'm pushing really hard, or a property manager that's stressed out connecting a bunch of utilities. Just, you gotta
Anyone right
express
now.
your gratitude, show them you're grateful, because it's so hard to find good people, and keep them. It's crazy at the moment.
Very well said. Very well said. Because I know, especially if you have acquisition dispositions that are top talent, like there's many other people out there that would probably pay more for them right now, this second, that are on the hunt. So and regardless of that, though, you know what, you should show that appreciation anyway. I'm a big believer in that, and I'm a big believer in like creating that winning culture, because that's a big part of it, right? Like, if they enjoy it and they love it, and they're really like, they want to be a part of the growth and the success of the company, and they feel like you have that best interest in mind for them as well. That's when you have the people that really like stick around, right? And you take care of them.
Yeah, well said. Well said. So listen, before we wrap up, how can people learn more about you and your companies, James? What's a good way to find out more about you?
Yeah, so I actually have, I'm on Instagram. I have a pretty decent following on Instagram, and actually on TikTok as well. I took a pause on social. Over the last few months, everyone's been like, where'd you go? I finished a live training that I was doing for some of my students, and I'm about to start another one back up early summer. But I will be going back full force on social over the next couple of weeks. But we've just had a lot going on, and with this expansion, it's taken a lot of time. So social is going to be the best, like Instagram, TikTok, and then YouTube.
So what's your Instagram handle? What is it?
James? It's at James the Hawk.
James the Hawk.
Yeah, look, and everyone's like the Hawk, really, but if just James Hawk was available, I would have took it, but it wasn't. So Look, I can only work with what I got, guys. So
yep. I got it. James the Hawk. We'll get that on the show notes. Listen, I've really enjoyed your insights, James, and got to take my hat off to all the fantastic success you've had, and I'll look forward to staying in touch with you through your next year with all the exciting things you got going on. Thanks again for your time.
Thank you so much. I really appreciated being on here. Thank you. And I definitely want to stay in contact as well.
There you go, folks. That was show 55 with James Hawk. I hope you enjoyed that conversation. I certainly did. What a smart guy. I love how calm and easygoing he is, and it's just strange that sometimes the people that get the most done, and James clearly is juggling a lot of different businesses and business partners and projects at the minute, but he seems like such a chilled out guy. And on the other hand, I've met other people in my life that are just more stressed out than you can imagine, and they've hardly anything going on. So go figure. I do appreciate that calm, laid back personality. I do relate to that well myself. I do consider myself also kind of a fast moving but relatively calm guy, easygoing guy, and I kind of like that mixture. I respect and appreciate everything James has achieved. He's built a big team, built a big real estate business, flipping, wholesaling, commercial property, residential property, long-term lets, short-term lets, coaching. The key person who designed a very important piece of software, REI Automator, which I've heard a lot of good things about. So yeah, tip of the hat to James Hawk, and thanks again to James for giving me an hour of his time on a Friday afternoon before a Memorial Bank holiday was when we recorded this. So thank you again, James. I enjoyed that. And thanks again, guys, for tuning into the show. And really appreciate it. If you are able to give me a rating or a review, please do so. Go into your app, give it a 5 stars, and write a little note about it. If you're able to share any of my episodes on social media, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, I'd appreciate that as well. You can go to the website colininvestments.com. You'll see a bunch of information and downloads and reports there. And feel free to reach out to me. You'll get me or one of my assistants, info@colininvestments.com. You can schedule calls with me directly, and I'm happy to talk about anything real estate related. Okay, so that's it from me now today. Like I said at the top of the show, by the time this comes out, I will be in my new base in Madrid, Spain, and future episodes, probably in the autumn of 2021, will talk about how I managed that transition and how I'm doing with new real estate deals in Spain. But at the minute, I'm just, as this is being recorded, I am juggling 11 different renovations, 6 different land deals, and relocating a family of 4 to Madrid, Spain. So a lot going on, but I'm still taking time off to rent a beach house over Memorial weekend and chill out a little bit. It's my wedding anniversary as well, so we're going to enjoy that. And that's pretty much it. Thanks again for all your support. Enjoy you guys tuning in and all the kind of kind wishes I get by email and social media. Thanks again, and I'll be back real soon with show 56. But until then, this is Colin G. Murphy signing out. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.